Hello and welcome back to another Escape from Tarkov video. Today we're going to be looking at top tips that you can use as a new or veteran player to help you in your raids. These tips are going to cover in-combat scenarios, stash management, and how to help you start leveling soft skills from the beginning. The first tip, and it's one of the most common ones I see new people on the Reddit commenting about, is that you can loot all 4 drawers in the filing cabinet. Now the loot isn't fantastic, but early on in the wipe you can get very useful keys and craft the materials for the hideout. They also can be a very good source of money if you happen to get one of the rare drops, which can range from a roller to a labs keycard. And this is where I found all of my gas analyzers this wipe. You can also see on that first drawer I opened, I got the tape required to make the 60 round mags in the lavatory in the hideout. So that's a good thing to look for as well. Right, the next tip is a combat related tip, and basically it goes along the lines of the camo isn't cover. And what I mean by this is basically, especially on maps like woods where you've got a lot of foliage, you might think hiding in a bush is a really good strat, and in real life it would be, but the problem with using camouflage over cover in Escape from Tarkov is other people can see you plain as day based on level of detail. So people across the other end of the map might look at you and spot you instantly because that bush doesn't load in for them. Now if you're watching on screen now, I'll show you what I mean. Basically I'm on woods, I have a broken leg, I've took painkillers, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and head to extract to get out, and during the push to extract I spot 2 players in a fight on the other end here. Now I get into this cover, to take the shot, and what I end up doing is I take out one of them, which I think is quite a nice shot. It was dead on target, and then I just scooch a little bit to the right to try and get a shot on the left one, and there must have been one on the right that just completely took me out, and he would have seen me plain as day because that bush just wouldn't have loaded for him. Next we have a new feature that's just been added with 12.6, which I think is fantastic, and that is it's the new lean. Now you've got the normal lean, which does more when you're prone. But now if you're prone and you hold Alt and then press Q or E, you do this full lean, which is fantastic for when you're trying to get shots round, a difficult corner and you don't want to put out too much of your body. I will say that I find it far more difficult to aim like this, and it's going to take some practice to get used to, but I think it's going to be a very useful thing to use on most maps, especially residential areas or places with buildings. I mean, hell, even on woods, if you just want to lean out from behind a tree, I think that would be fantastic. Now I think this is going to be way more effective against scavs than it is going to be against players. As you can see, when I get up here and I start actually firing at the scavs and they start returning fire, they just miss me completely. I'm wondering if this new alt lean has the same problems that the raiders used to have a problem where you alt step out and you do a quick step out into the corridor and they just couldn't shoot you for love nor money. I'm wondering if this presents the same issue to normal scavs. If you're watching here, I can just alt out to do this roll lean out, and I'm just taking shots and none of them are hitting me. The scavs cannot seem to land a shot on me, so I'm wondering if that's part of the problem. But if it is, that might be an easy way for you to get some scav kills. This next one is a personal problem of mine. So I went into the controls and rebound. Well, I didn't even rebind them because I don't use them, but I changed the smooth lean because what I was finding what was happening is when I was trying to scope in and then look round a corner, and then I was pressing shift to steady my breath, which I know it's alt, but you know what I mean. I was pressing that button and I just kept smooth leaning my character to one side, and during a firefight that can be a death sentence if you're stuck leaning one side for the entire firefight. So I just rebound them. I think the Q and E lean is fine. The smooth lean is good if you want to do, you want to lean a little bit, but I mean, I don't find it as useful as something like, the full rolling lean. But that's what I would suggest. Rebind those keys so you don't accidentally use them in the middle of a fight and have that mess up the whole combat for you. Next, this is a tip that I use to increase my stash space. I mean, I've got EOD and even that feels like there's too little space in your stash. What I do is I remove the pistol grips and the magazines from the weapons, which then most weapons go to a one slot, like one length weapon. So for example, on the AKs, it goes from being a 10 slot item to a 5 slot item, and it just saves you so much space. Now if you're worried about not being able to, put them back together again, my advice is just keep the pistol grips. You can buy the mags, you know how to buy them, but keep the pistol grips, and that still saves you nearly 4 spaces for every 10 slot weapon. Now this tip is a minor change but makes a big difference. What you got to do is you've got to rebind your reload key, and I don't mean rebind as in change what key it's located on. If you go into your options now, you should see your your reload key is set to its release instead of press. So you've got two different types of reload. You've got the quick reload and the normal reload, and they've done this so you can quick reload by double tapping R. Now I'd rebind that anyway, but the reason it's a problem is because when the key is on release, that means when you lift your finger off the button, that's when it starts to, use the action. So when you've got someone that's got their reload key set to press, as soon as they press down the button, they're reloading. If you have someone with it set to release, as soon as they release their finger, it's reloading. It's seconds difference, milliseconds, if that, but it does make a difference and it makes it more responsive. At least that's what I find. Give it a try. This is also a personal one of mine, so I have changed the zeroing up and down to the scroll wheel, and I just find that makes it so much faster. I find originally when it was on page up and page down, it's just really, what's the word? It feels awkward to change the zeroing by taking my mouse off my hand off the keyboard, or my hand off the ability to, the WAS and D. So I just removed the up and down options and just put them on page up and page down, because it's very rare you need to page up and page down on the options rather than zeroing, which is almost critical ability during a firefight. So this one's pretty simple, but it's something I didn't find out till like a year and a half of playing. If you hold crouch and then use the scroll wheel, you will crouch on a variable in increments, so you'll go up and down at different heights, and it just makes the game so much easier when you can, especially when they've got them double stacked boxes, like they do in the red light alleyway on Factory, where there's that little slit in the middle, and you can just crouch to a certain height and you can shoot straight down the hallway whilst being almost fully covered behind that box with variable crouch. It's something you've got to get used to. I would advise practicing with it so you can be comfortable in the middle of a fight and use it when you need it. It seems like in Escape from Tarkov I spend more time playing Tetris with my stash than I do actually playing the game. Now at the beginning of a wipe, you don't have access to the items cases and the weapons cases and things which you tend to need to organise and increase your stash space. What I use for 2 slot and 1 slot items that I know I'm going to need for quests down the road are just chest rigs. The MK3, the Afghan chest rig, they are fantastic chest rigs to keep a hold of because they're so big. This chest rig is 16 slots in the stash and it gives you 25 slots. That is an extra 9 slots. It's fantastic for just increasing space. It sounds weird, but when you've got a bunch of 1 slot items sat in in your stash, if you throw them all into a chest rig, you're reducing the overall size it takes and you're making it more manageable to move around. So if you see any scavs with massive chest rigs, I would advise, that sounded like an innuendo, I would advise you take them. Especially the MK3. Black Rocks are also fantastic for this because they got a big buff as well. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Just keep your scavs on cooldown, especially if there's been a new update. Log on after the new update because then that'll start your scav to cool down again. I don't know why it stops your scav from, being used straight away, but there it is. Now the reason I would suggest this is because each new scav is really like a Lucky Scav junk box. The amount of variation they can have in the gear and just what they have in their pockets can sometimes be millions of rubles. So at the very least, if you're not going to use your scav, to try and knock out some, items you need for quests, just jump into Factory and then get out the exit and sell everything on it. It takes you like 5-10 minutes and the scav's on a 20-minute cooldown, and that way you just keep up your chances of getting a scav that has a potential million ruble key in its backpack. And the last tip is, on your PMC, eat absolutely everything you come across in raid. And the reason being is that will slowly raise your metabolism skill, and it will cost you absolutely nothing. Now, of course, there's caveats to this. Don't go start munching some, oat flakes in the middle of a firefight just because you see them on a shelf. Don't run over to them and start thinking, well, I've got to get that metabolism XP. But within reason, when you're going about looting, if you find some, as you see in the clip, if you find some crackers, just eat them. It'll slowly but surely increase your metabolism, and that is a requirement for the nutrition station level 3, I believe. So it's best to get started on that early. And that's going to be it for this guide. If you can think of anything that can help new and old players alike, please leave it as a comment down below. I hope some of these tips help you. If I have any more of these tips, or I think of any more things that I do in Tarkov that I haven't seen posted about, I will make another video. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.